welcome to episode 72 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because of mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
One hell of a disclaimer, that. I think
go.
it would look good on some merch. Ooh.
Wouldn't it just?
Yeah.
I
don't know how much we should talk about this. It'll probably be out soon, though. We're having some merch redone.
We are. Very exciting. About time, too.
Yes, we finally got our shit together, basically. So, yeah, that'll be coming soon if it isn't already out.
You're yawning already. It's an early one, isn't it?
It is, but we're busy bitches, so we've got to get this boxed off before sort of 11 a.m.
Well, it's funny, things are picking up again now, aren't they? I'm kind of missing the isolation times now.
Yeah, well, I'm still being a bit sort of like, not discerning with gigs, but I'm like, is this worth me doing?
Yeah.
And I never used to do that before. If anyone offered me a gig, I'd say yes, even if they're like, can you come to Swansea for 50 quid? I'd be like, yes, because I've just drilled it into myself that you always say yes to gigs. Whereas now I'm being like, no, thank you, or I'm making a piss weak excuse.
Because it's such a weird time money-wise as well, and people have got to be careful. It's like, even a gig that I would have happily gone and done, like you say, before lockdown, just been like, I'll go and do it, because then I can go and see my mum or whatever, or I can go here and do that. It's like, I can't do that because that just covers my train ticket or whatever.
That's exactly it.
You've really got to think now, haven't you, about the pros and cons of something.
Yeah, totally.
The other thing I was going to say is, so obviously lineups are coming out from clubs at the moment, and I am sick to death, and it is one particular comedy club. You know, it's as if Black Lives Matter never happened. It's as if we haven't had these discussions about getting diversity and having, you know, a fairer playing field. The same four men that were probably on before lockdown were on at the new night when it was reopening.
I haven't been gigging lots during lockdown, obviously, but there's 3 online gigs that 2 that went ahead that there was an all-white lineup, and I was like, can we not be an all-white lineup? Is that okay? And then I said, I'll step back. And then they went, oh, God, yeah, absolute idiots. And then added, like, a person of colour to the bill. And the bill is obviously better for it because the people who got added were absolutely brilliant comedians. And it's not just this, you know, it brings, just like me being a woman brings another perspective. You can have a different perspective if you're, you know, a person of colour. So the night is richer for it. And I flagged it with the promoters and they were both great about it. The same white, straight, male, cisgendered comedian was on both lineups and didn't say anything. And, like, on the first one, I was like, oh, this is... I was sort of going, I messaged the promoter and said, we shouldn't be an all-white bill. Like, that should just not be happening these days. And they were like, yeah, I thought that. And then when I saw the lineup for the other one, and it was literally on the day when I got tagged into something, I was like, why didn't you say anything about why is it always me who's got to be like, excuse me, here I am again, just to say, can I be inconvenient and make sure that you know, like, it's just fucking exhausting. Also, sometimes it is hard to programme a bill that's outside of London, I would say, that's more diverse, just because you're picking from a much smaller pool of acts.
But the thing is as well, I mean, that's fine outside London, but at the moment, nobody could know at that time nobody's going to comedy club, so it's fucking online. So therefore,
you're picking from the whole of the internet. I don't know if people know this, but like if you're listening to this, you've got a local comedy club that you go to, or one that you've been meaning to go to, or you're going to after lockdown. Look at the lineups. I know I've had promoters book me because they've gone, oh, we've had people getting in touch saying that we haven't got enough women on, so I just wanted to check your availabilities. Because it does work, that people won't naturally change out of the goodness of their heart, but they will change if they believe that their money is at risk. So, like, you are well within your rights as a patron of said comedy club to just go, hey, I just noticed that you're putting on all white lineups. Is that likely to change? Or, you know, you can just nicely say it. And if they reply like cunts, put it on the internet.
And also, while we're banging this drum, what I will say is something that is completely overlooked is, please start having some fucking working class people on your fucking bills as well. Because the amount of times I say, you see diversity and then you go, that's diverse to an extent, but not one of these fuckers is working class. Just have a fucking think, you know, about everything. I tell you, wouldn't have a diverse lineup, Israel Keys.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Israel Keys.
This is...
listener suggestion.
Yeah, we've been suggested this a lot over the years. Israel Keys is really scary in terms of the preparation he put into stuff.
Yeah, it's a very recent one as well. I mean, I to be honest, I'd heard of Israel Keys, but I didn't know anything about him until I started researching it. And a bit like the last one we did, which was, what was his name?
Bowmaster.
Yeah, like another one that feels really recent.
Yeah.
But yet not that reported.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Not well reported.
So Israel Keyes, he was born in Cove, Utah on January the 7th, 1978. He was from a large Mormon family. I read that wrong as Merman because of my writing there. And I thought, at first I thought, well, this has taken a turn. From a large Mormon family. And they were called the ARC Group. They were on a list of racist organisations, weren't they? They're quite a sort of a militant religious group of, I think, white supremacists. He was the second of 10 children. He had a sister called Hosanna.
Nice.
So you can definitely see that they're, with Israel and Hosanna. I quite like the name Hosanna. I think it's quite cool. Reminds me of school. Sing Hosanna.
Oh,
Let's not get
that
into
was
that.
an absolute belter. You'd sing it in rounds. Wasn't it? Give me joy in my heart, keep me praising.
My heart, keep me praising. That's the one, yeah. Give me joy in my heart. Yeah, that's the one. Lovely hymn.
Also, hold on. Keep me praising till the break of day. As in, like, through the night, just like, fuck me, I love praising. Is that what it's about?
Listen, when you're a Catholic, mate, you're praying all the fucking time, man.
What's a Hosanna?
A Hosanna, I think it's just like a ejaculation of Hosanna, like...
So, like, hallelujah.
Hallelujah kind of thing, yeah. I mean, for someone who spent so much time at Catholic school, I know fuck all about it.
Yeah, and I like that you worked ejaculation in there as well.
I did, in a non-rude sense. Did you like that?
Yeah, it was good.
Lovely.
Also, it's really close to the Welsh word for stocking.
What, ejaculation?
Hosan.
Oh, Hosan. Oh, that's stocking.
Yeah, there you go.
His mum was called Heidi, his dad was called John Jeffrey Keyes, and he was homeschooled, of which I have opinions about, but last time I voiced them, someone got in touch and I just thought, oh, fuck off.
Say what you like about home-educated people, they're very chill.
Well, exactly. Well, the thing is now, for the past 6 months, all kids have been fucking homeschooled, haven't they?
It's horses for courses, isn't it? And I think we said that on the last thing. And also, like, I think what people need to remember when they send us messages like this is, it's just two comedians, this is an entertainment podcast.
Exactly. I think what people do need to remember is as well, when they get in touch with me personally to pull me up on something, I don't fucking care. So throughout my life as a working class person, I've been told to shut up and sit down, and my opinion doesn't matter. And unfortunately, I've got a platform now, so I'm going to fucking use it. Anyway.
That on a tea towel, please.
A tea towel?
Yeah. All the best merch comes on a tea towel.
A tea towel? So he apparently had quite a normal childhood in the sense of, like, there was no neglect, there was no sort of issues with the parents, apart from being part of a religious cult. But he said that he started to have violent urges as a child, and he started to realise that things he thought were normal, not everyone else thought were normal. So he started to realise that his thoughts weren't sort of, what's the word? Yeah, normal. Normal? I was trying to think of a different word.
Yeah, because he thought that everyone else had these violent urges, but they were just hiding it.
Oh, yeah. There was an incident. I laughed at that as if I had them.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
There was an incident where he tied a cat to a tree. He was with one of his friends in the woods. Ooh. He tied a cat to a tree. This is horrible. Tied a cat to a tree and he shot it in the stomach with a pellet gun and killed it. Now, as he's doing this, he was laughing and found it highly amusing. The other child just threw up. And from that point, no one hung around with him. He just used to hang out by himself because he thought, oh, well, it's just me that feels like this. This is, I'll be better off on my own. In his late teenage years, he started to do burglaries and he was stealing. He announced he was an atheist to his parents and they kicked him out.
Also, they found that he had an arsenal of guns and weapons in the house.
Yes.
And they were like, Israel, you can't keep a sort of stash of guns in the house. And he's like, well, I don't believe in God anyway. And they're like, how dare you get out of the house?
And he said, this is America. I'll keep as many guns in my house as I like.
Ugh.
So, oh God, as I'm talking to you, a massive spider has just crawled down my wall. It's one of those hardest...
Are you arachnophobic?
No, but I'd just rather not have... I never kill spiders or anything like that, but I'd just rather not have it in my room, do you know what I mean? But I'm sure we'll get on all right. In fact, I was saying, I used to be a bit squeamish about insects, but since I spent so long in the countryside during lockdown, I'm at peace with insects now. I'm at peace with them. Yeah, I'm not as bothered about them. Like, I never kill them or anything like that. I'm better than I used to be. I'm not, like, squeamish about them and I can live with them now. I'm like... I think I'm becoming a bit of a hippie. I've started burning incense and I was looking at some elephant pants the other day. So, but when I say elephant pants, I don't mean pants for an elephant because that would be ridiculous.
Well, I need them after lockdown, to be honest.
You know those hippie pants that are like...
Yes, I do.
I am.
Gap year pants.
Gap year pants, yeah. I am. I swear to God, I reckon about a year from... Because I've been looking at flats to rent in Cornwall, because I'm like, fucking move to Cornwall for the amount that I pay on this flat in London. You could have like a 2-bedroomed house. And I keep looking at them and going, oh, burning incense and looking at these elephant pants. I am, I swear to God, a year away from full-on hippie, I think. A year.
Do you know my agent, Hannah, brilliant Hannah? She's like that, you know, got like, wears elephant pants and is like, got all her, you know, dyed fucking sarong things hanging on a wall from her years travelling.
Oh, really?
She's got a touch of the 90s elephants about her.
Oh, I think me and Hannah need to have a chat, don't we? We need to have a chat. Or a meditate. That's what we need to do. I actually bought, because I buy all these incense sticks, I buy them now, not on the smell, but on the emotion that they're meant to evoke, or the spiritual feeling that... See, I've fucking gone mad, haven't I?
Yeah, really.
I preferred myself when I just used to go to the pub.
So you read a box that says, I presume, furious from the moment I wake up, and you're like, oh, that sounds like me, and you buy one.
Well, do you know what? It hasn't worked very well, because I started to do morning meditations as well, and I put one on the other day, and it really fucked me off after about 3 minutes. It agitated me and I had to turn it off. I was like, this isn't working, is it? It's working in a way, but this chilled out new Rachel is not completely there yet. It was like, and just close the eyes, and I was like, oh, fuck off. It's too fucking early for this shit. Anyway, where were we? So, if you got your serial killer bingo cards, he served in the US Army from 1998 to 2001. He was at Fort Hood, Fort Lewis, and he was in Egypt as well. His army friends said that he was quite normal, and he really enjoyed the band Insane Clown Posse.
Well, I'd say that again is a flag.
Yeah.
What are they called? Juggalos? Is that what they called their fans?
Is that what they're called? He was okay, but except when he drank, he would drink an entire bottle of wild turkey bourbon. I can never say bourbon. I always say, like, the biscuits, bourbons. I absolutely hate... I like Jack Daniels, which is a bourbon, one of my favourite drinks, but I will not thank you for wild turkey. I will not thank you for anything like Southern Comfort. I will not thank you for... What's the other one that's like...
Do you remember when Southern Comfort tried to rebrand like it had just gone to a new university and was like, we're actually SoCo now?
SoCo! Oh my God.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't, but I didn't know Southern Comfort had been through a divorce. Yeah.
Honestly, I remember that they were like, they just had loads of adverts where people are going like, SoCo and Coke? Yeah, I'll get a double SoCo and Coke. And just loads of that. And then it would cut to Southern Comfort and you're like, oh, this is really embarrassing. They've got an undercut. And
so embarrassing.
And there's only one person I went to a university with who is, a podcast in themselves who I heard use it as a bar, who went, yeah, I'm going to get a SoCo and Coke. And I was so embarrassed, my fucking womb rinsed itself inside out with cringing.
God. Oh, no. A SoCo and Coke. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work, and B, it's a disgusting drink.
Yeah, I think it leaves a film on my mouth, like I've just drunk a cup of butter. And if you're like, how do you know what that tastes like? Look at me. Of course I've drunk a cup of butter in my time. Also, to go back very quickly, he was, Juggalos are the name of the sort of fandom. They're basically legends for Insane Clown Posse. And they've got like their own idioms and slang and all sorts.
Cool, in a way. I mean, I don't really know anything about Insane Clown Posse, but I know this is awful, but I just have an image of a high school shooter in my head when I hear the band name, and I don't know why.
Well, I think it is. I think it was a group that was sort of outsiders really took to them. So I get why you're sort of identifying.
Have I ever mentioned the two lads at my school in Manchester in the 90s, in high school, that threatened to come in and shoot everybody?
No.
Oh my God. So it was obviously around the time of Columbine, and it was all on the news. So bear in mind, this is North Manchester in the mid-90s, right? These are two geeks who were around, teenage years. The two lads who were into, like, Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. Nice enough lads. Nobody really bothered them. They didn't bother anyone else. One day they suddenly told us in maths that they were going to come in and shoot us, right? And all these kids like running to the teachers and telling them, and the headmaster got involved and contacted their parents and, brought the parents in and spoke to them. And I was like, yeah, fair enough that they've taken it seriously, but where the fuck are two kids from North fucking Manchester who are massive geeks gonna find a firearm, right? How are they gonna come into school? Then you've got to, like, shooting a gun's not that easy. They're gonna have some sort of target practice. Like, the entire... I just remember thinking, like, this entire thing's fucking ridiculous. Like, it just wouldn't happen. It's not America.
But is that not what people in America think? That they're like, oh, that nerd won't do anything.
Yeah,
and then they...
But there's a difference, isn't there, in America? That there's access to these things. There's access to firearms. There's access... This is the problem, you know. A lot of these kids that have done it have been able to have access to a gun to get a bit of the old target practice in or whatever, or there's no way. I mean, the kid that went to my school, he was about 2 foot nothing. He had bum fluff on his chin. He barely...
You're describing a school shooter to me.
I am, but what I'm talking about is that I'm talking about North Manchester in the mid-90s. Where the fuck is this kid who can't even bring himself to speak to anyone in the classroom gonna go into the criminal underworld and find a gun? Because that's how you would find one in Manchester in the 90s. Like, fucking, there's no way that kid was going down on Moss Side. He could barely go to the fucking chippy on the corner at dinner time. Absolute insanity. And of course, I'm not making light of school shootings because I think it's, you know, absolutely disgusting, and until America decides to take some control about it, it's going to continue. But have a bit of realism. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I just remember all the school going, oh my God, he was going to bring a gun in. And I was like, he'd bring a gun in? He doesn't do PE because he's a weakling. How's he going to fucking hold a handgun? Get fucking with it.
Oh, Rachel.
Anyway, he's in prison now. He's not really.
What does he do?
He actually came to one of my gigs once a few years ago. I don't know what he does. I think he just works at a garage or something. He's got a couple of kids and a wife. So, yeah.
I'm really glad that everything's turned out all right for him.
For now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Where were we? So his first crime is sort of between 96 and 98. And the details he gives when he's eventually caught, spoiler alert, is that there was a girl called Lena or Leia who was between 14 and 18 years old. She's out kayaking with her family. Excuse me. And she gets separated.
Does the word kayak make you sick? Is that what happened?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I got my gip on.
Was it the idea of somebody going out with a family and doing some activities?
Oh my God. I told you when I went kayaking on holiday with my family and they had to separate my mother and I because we were arguing so much.
Oh no.
Yeah, like it was very bad.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I was at the back or something, which is where you have to sort of, I think, not pedal, what's it called? Row, like with the strongest. But I was like fucking 13 years old and she's like some hard-ass fucking farmer. So she's just screaming at me down a river and then a sort of nice guy comes over and is like, oh, I think maybe we can swap you out. So I just like sat with someone else, like silently weeping as my mum is like staring me out from across the fucking river on a kayak. My brother was with my dad in one, and my brother's doing everything like fucking sweating like a bastard, whereas my dad is just sat with his arms folded like a Native American chief at the front of this canoe, not doing anything.
Just on a leisure cruise.
Yeah, basically. Like with such gravitas that you're like, he must own this area. That's why our family doesn't go kayaking. So she got separated from her family on the Deschutes River. Israel Keys finds her. So he abducts this poor girl and he takes her to a shed near the river. He rapes her and then he ties her up ready to kill her. But she is really smart, well, like psychologically astute woman, in that she's really appeasing him and sort of she's going, you know, you could just let me go. She's like, I don't, you're probably the kind of guy that I would go out with. And she's like, you're so good looking, you don't need to do this, and sort of really sort of flattering his ego. And she's like, I would have gone out with you. So then she very smartly convinces him to let her go. She runs back and finds her family. He says as soon as she went, he regretted it, and then he made the decision that he was never going to let anyone go again. He would always kill them.
God.
So yeah, it's amazing that she was able to convince him to let her go, and like what an amazing resourceful woman with like real presence of mind. But at the same time, shit, he's just vowed to never let anyone go again because of, he said he thought about it all the time.
Well, there's that thing, is it when you're held hostage, you meant, if someone kidnaps you, you're meant to repeat your name and you talk about your family, like you're meant to say, I'm Rachel Fairburn, I have a mum, I have a dad, my sister is called this, I like doing this. You're meant to like constantly talk about, I mean, it might be great if I was kidnapped, I love talking about myself, but you just meant to humanise yourself to them, aren't you? And say,
that's it.
All that kind of stuff.
Which is why when someone is missing and their family is on the news, they would say, Rachel Fairburn, she means so much to us, as like, we miss our daughter. Rachel, they use their name a lot. It's to stop them being objectified into something disposable and make whoever has taken them see them as the human that they are.
So depressing. Oh, in fact, my boyfriend said to me this morning, he said, I had a terrible dream last night. I dreamt that you and my mum were kidnapped by someone that I used to go to school with, and I came and rescued you both, but then I just shot him in the head anyway. And I was like, okay, when you were asleep last night, did you leave that podcast about crime that you were listening to on thing? You went, oh yeah, I didn't turn it off. So he's obviously listened to something he's left a podcast on and dreamt the thing that is in the podcast.
What a shit imagination.
Yeah, I know. I've done that though a couple of times. Do you know, I know it's boring talking about dreams, but I had such a vivid dream the other night that I was on the Titanic when it was sinking. It was fucking mental. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, that dream was a bit real, mental.
Why, hold on, were you above or below?
Well, this is where Tim said that the dream was inaccurate. He said, where were you? I said I was on deck. He went, incorrect, you'd be below. I said, can I not...
You be playing one of those drums that's got like a little stick with two things either side?
I said, even in dreamland, I'm not allowed to better myself. Unbelievable. So then as you say, he decides that he's not going to let anyone go free again. He's like, after that time, I'm definitely going to... Did the girl report it?
No, I think later on they found the girl when he was arrested and gave these details. But no, at the time she didn't report it.
Oh, God.
Hideous. Imagine that, just like coming back and being really scared, and then your family being like, is everything all right? What happened? And you're like, nothing, when you've just been fucking... sexually assaulted and nearly murdered in a shed.
So scary. So scary. In 2007, he moves to Alaska. In this time, though, he's got a girlfriend. They have a child together. He's still not seeing his family at this point. The interesting thing is his girlfriend as well apparently suffered from alcoholism, which is why they moved around quite a bit. I think he was trying to move from place to place to try and get a new start kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah. I'll say the one thing I do find quite good about this case is the fact that you can't find anything out about his wife or his daughter, because for once I think it's been good that they've been able to get on with it, because they knew nothing about this, that they've been able to get on with their lives without having sort of press intrusion and stuff like that. Because when he was caught, his daughter was only 10 years old. So they moved around a bit, and then in 2007 they moved to Alaska, and he started a construction business called Keys Construction, and he was a handyman and a contracted worker and a carpenter as well, I think. He did all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, basically a handyman in Anchorage. And he was well known as being a reliable worker and sort of well liked for that. And he lived in Turnagain, which is a really good neighbourhood. In fact, it was around the corner from the senator. And so he lived amongst quite influential people. So I imagine he would have been sort of the go-to handyman in that area for those rich ones as well. So he also used to, as part of his business, he would go to areas and repair hurricane damage, which is like a very noble thing to do. But it was also, so he was going to far-flung places in the country that he had no ties to, that were in disarray, and that's when he was putting his preparation in and or picking victims, which is fucking chilling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, people who worked with said that they quite liked him. He was quite a easygoing bloke. They said that he had a good sense of humour. They said that he was a devoted father. We only know I know it sounds stupid to say we only know what we know, but this man had definitely been killing for a number of years, I think. And when he had his daughter, he says that it was when he had his child that he decided not to kill children anymore. So there's definitely... What I mean is there's stuff that's gone on that we're never going to know about, I think.
I find, because there's a lot of footage of his confession up on the internet, And I do find him kind of seemingly normal, and also what you would think of an archetype of a serial killer to be, in that they're quite charming, they seem quite bright, you know, naturally manipulative, arrogant, all that kind of stuff, as opposed to, you know, when you see someone who's like Ed Gein or something, who's the other end of it, that's sort of reserved and monosyllabic and probably got a low IQ. He's definitely on the Ted Bundy side of things. In fact, he used to really look up to Ted Bundy.
Oh God, here we go, female incel.
So we're going to talk about the case that leads him to being caught, basically.
Yeah.
So, February the 1st.
Do you know, nothing makes me feel colder than thinking about February in Alaska. It makes my feet feel wet. It makes me just feel really cold. I don't know how I'd get on in Alaska, to be quite honest with you. I think I might. I mean, I'm sure.
Really?
I'm sure it's a beautiful place, but to me it just seems like, I don't know.
So, yeah, it's February 1st, 2012. Samantha Koenig goes missing.
Yeah.
She is a barista at a coffee stand. Now, he'd staked out this coffee stand because it was the one that was open the latest. So it shuts at 8 p.m. On the CCTV, you see a guy with his hood up go in and basically grab her, put her in zip ties and carry her away.
Ugh. And it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, because she just serves him coffee and then it just totally changes, and it's just such a horrible thing to see, because you can see she's, I mean, I hate watching stuff like that anyway, but it's on one of the documentaries. Just absolutely, she's terrified. It's horrible. Yeah.
You just feel the fear, don't you? It's really chilling. And then he goes back so he bundles her into I think it's a white, like, pickup truck. On it, he's taken off the, what they're called, like the things that hold the ladders on the roof.
Oh, I know what you mean.
And he's changed the plates, or taken the plates off, so it's much harder to recognise it. So they're looking for a different car, basically. And then he goes back and he gets her mobile phone. And he's tied her up, I think I might have said this, with zip ties. So she's a total stranger to him, which is how he does it. He targets strangers. Now, she's really well loved, really popular, so there's a huge public and community response to this. Friends set up a reward fund for her. There's candlelight vigils. They crowdsource for self-defense classes for all the baristas who are working on their own on coffee stalls as a result of it.
Well, the reason this all comes about is because her boyfriend goes to pick her up after a shift and she's not there. So he's like, what's going on? This is not like her. He gets a text message from her phone a little bit later that says, spending time with friends. Now, he knows then, he's like, she wouldn't send a message like that. This is definitely not her, and I'm very concerned. And even a father, James, he starts a big campaign, like, she's very well liked. Everyone's really worried about it, and it really brings sort of the community together, I think, because everyone's so keen to get her brought home. Really, the FBI were brought in as well to help. This carries on, and 2.5 weeks later, a boyfriend, who's obviously worried sick, gets another message from her phone, and it says, corner park sign under picture of Albert. Ain't she pretty? He tells the police go to this park. They find a Ziploc bag and a ransom note on a notice board. And in the bag is a fuzzy picture of Samantha. And the ransom asks for $30,000. And the police, quite an unprecedented thing to do, I think, say they're going to put part of that into her account for the supposed kidnapper at this point. What's happening then is Israel Keys, he's withdrawing $500 at the daily limit from her account. Yeah.
He took a card and scratched the PIN number into it and was like, listen, I'm just going to take your money. I'm not going to do anything else, which is why she sort of agrees. In fact, there's he took her to a shed that he had that was near his house, and that's where he had her hidden. And meanwhile, his daughter and his partner are in the house, and he just played loud music to cover up any of the sounds of her being inside. So he goes and he takes money out in Alaska, he goes to Arizona, he goes to New Mexico, he goes to Texas, and there's footage of there's lots of them have CCTVs, and there's sort of footage, and in one case, I think it is in New Mexico, there's, an alert that the card's being used, and the police arrive, and they're there sort of only 10 minutes after he was, so they just miss him. But what he does do is, by mistake, he parks his car with the number plates, the actual number plates, in view of the CCTV, and that is how they track him down. Now, this photograph that's in the ransom note is fucking hideous, because The police don't... Well, the family were like, that's weird. Her hair's plaited. She never wears her hair like that.
Yeah, that was how he used to do his daughter's hair. So what had happened was, when he takes her to the house, he'd killed her the same night. And because it was so cold in Alaska, it preserved the body. Well, he buggers off then on a cruise for a week or so with his girlfriend.
2 weeks?
2 weeks with his girlfriend.
He murders her and then goes on a 2-week cruise the next night.
To New Orleans with his girlfriend and daughter. And he, obviously, the body's preserved because it's cold. He comes back, he puts makeup on her and does her hair in a way that she would never have had her hair done, and takes that photograph of her, deliberately making it fuzzy to appear that she's alive. Now, that was shown to her father and a boyfriend, and they confirmed it was her, but they didn't know that she was dead in the photograph.
Yeah. Do you know what a really sad moment of it is as he's leading her out of the kiosk, basically, when he's taking her, he says to her, you can see he says, switch the light off. And she goes to do it. And there's a panic button right next to the light switch. And they think that she just, panicked about you, thought that it would make things worse for her.
No. It's horrible, that, isn't it?
It's fucking horrible. So it's so dark that he's murdered her, gone on holiday for 2 weeks, then come back and then used, I presume, his fucking partner's makeup to make her look alive and take this blurry photograph. So February 13th that appears, so basically pretty much when he's back. So this Texas rental car is what they see. That's it. It's not his car, it's a rental car. An ATM on CCTV, and they trace it back to him and they arrest him. By now, there's a £30,000 ransom fee for whoever killed her.
There's a cop in Texas who sees the car, pulls him over, sees that his license is an Alaskan license. And he's like, this is definitely this guy we're looking for. He has a search of the car and he finds Samantha's phone and her debit cards. So it's like, well, pretty easy capture there, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah, really easy. And he is actually quite forthcoming when they arrest him. So
yeah, he knows the game's up, doesn't he?
Yeah. So he's like, okay, get me a black coffee, a Snickers and a cigar, which they oblige. And then he just starts to tell them about everything he did, basically.
Yeah. He says, I'm going to tell you everything, because he's like, oh, you've got your monster and all this. He's quite enjoying it and he's laughing away and having a great time, isn't it? But he has sort of stipulations on his confession. So he said that he doesn't want his girlfriend or daughter dragged into it, and he wants anonymity, and he wants the death penalty with a date. Now, The thing is, he admits that he killed Samantha that same morning that he kidnapped her. And, he talked about all of that. He's very open about it. He admits that he went on the cruise, and he tells the entire story. And then he says, oh, I'll tell you where her body is. So he admits he dismembered her, and he threw her in Matanuska Lake. Now, he said that he'd gone fishing, or was pretending to go fishing, and there was a hole in the ice. And
he chainsawed the hole.
Oh, he did the hole. Oh,
yeah.
God.
So they chainsaw these holes so they can fish in the, in the winter when it's absolutely frozen, and it's just this massive frozen lake north of Anchorage. Yeah, and then he dropped a body in there. So they sent down a camera, didn't they?
Yes, the FBI take an underwater robot and they find her straight away. Just a horrible scenario, isn't it? Just the entire thing's horrible, and the fact that she's just thrown in that cold lake.
Yeah, it's hideous. Well, interestingly, I was talking about it. I wasn't talking about it. I love the way I was like, I was talking about it. What I actually mean was I was watching a documentary.
I was reading about it. I was listening to an audiobook.
One of the police officers is saying it's such a weird thing when you have a missing person presumed dead when you find the body, because there's this weird mix of being glad that there's some closure and also this very strange feeling of we're going to be the first person to touch this person that wasn't the person who killed them.
So weird.
And I was like, oh my God, what a thought process to even have. And like, he's basically saying that there's a level of reverence of like, let's be careful and let's be respectful, because the last person who encountered them is the reason that they're now dead. So it's just this balance of everything that's like, yeah, I guess a level of psychological complication that you don't even think of.
Yeah.
April the 2nd she's found. And yeah, missing on basically February the 1st. So that's a fair old time for a family to be absolutely torturing themselves. So he starts to confess, and he's very chatty. He laughs a lot. If you watch the documentaries, there's clips of him on that. He's a big laugher.
Oh, he is, yeah. The police actually agree with him to keep his, because they want him to talk. he agreed to keep his name out of the media. And he admits at the time, he admits to a lot of bank robberies, he admits to arson. He said that he enjoyed doing bank robberies and it was never about the money, it was always about the excitement. And then the police are like, you know what, he's definitely killed before. It's just a matter of time before he tells us. And he does. He admits to another murder, which was Bill and Lorraine Currier in Essex in Vermont. Now, the thing about Israel Keyes is there's definitely more murders to be attributed to him, but it's the fact that his crimes are so random and the fact that there's not one thing. It's not like he goes after women. This is a couple. He kills a couple. He broke into their house on the 8th of June 2011 and he'd been staking the house out, so he realised they were an older couple, they didn't have any children, they didn't have any pets, they didn't have a dog, so he was like, oh, this is going to be easy for me to get into the house. So he was really like, and I think he watched it over a period of days, and then before he decided to do his thing. Ugh, what a horrible way to put it. He's doing his thing.
So he stakes it out because there's no dogs, no kids. Right, this is the one. So he goes and he takes a screen vent.
Sounds like me, to be honest.
He takes a screen vent out in the garage with a crowbar. Then he breaks a window into the house, goes into the bedroom. He said, I was in there no longer than 5 seconds. I'm sure we've all heard that before. He had a gun and he led them to their own car. Then he drives them to this abandoned farmhouse. He takes Bill downstairs and he leaves Lorraine in the car. Now, Lorraine manages, even though she's tied up, she manages to get free and makes a bolt for it. And as she gets away, he runs after her, manages to capture her, and then he rapes her, apparently all of which Bill would have been able to hear. Now, Bill is downstairs and he's sort of like basically making Bill suffer. So Bill is trying to negotiate with him, going, you could just set us free. We wouldn't say anything. I understand where you are. You've got in too deep. It's basically using the negotiation technique, very similar to the one that poor girl that he attacked in that shed at the side of the river used. But this time he's made his rule of never letting anyone get away. So Bill does actually get free a few times and they physically fight each other. But eventually he just shoots Bill. And he kills them both. He strangles Lorraine and then dismembers them. Now, what he says to the police, the reason why he confesses to this is they say, listen, we can't give you an execution date unless you give us something concrete. And because they've got the suspicion that he is a serial killer. So he says, okay, I'm going to give you a name and 2 bodies, is what he says. And he's like, and then if you get them, that means that I get my execution date. So he says, they're at this farmhouse. That's where I left the bodies. So they go there and the farmhouse has been demolished in the meantime. And all the rubble and stuff has been taken to landfill. Oh, gosh. And he thinks this is hilarious, by the way, when they tell him. So they basically, for 12 weeks, searched the landfill that the house was taken to try and find traces of Bill and Lorraine. They're never found. But when they take cadaver dogs to the site of the farm, they're really responsive. Like there was bodies basically in the basement. So
good God, do you know?
They think,
I have to say, these cadaver dogs. How awful must it be being a dog? Like everything stinks because like they can smell that they've been in that house like a couple of years later. It must be horrible being a dog. Like, oh, what's that smell? Oh, cancer. Oh, what's that? Oh, body. I swear to God, I think dogs sniff each other's asses just to get a fucking break from it all.
Yeah.
The entire world stinks to them.
Yeah, well, I think that whenever I meet a new dog, it immediately, like, puts its nose to my fanny like it's smelling salts. And at first I used to be offended, but now I'm just like, you know what? It's just an amuse bouche to cleanse their palate between courses of cancer and death.
It just must be horrible, mustn't it? Just like, oh God, what now?
Yeah, being a dog seems absolutely shit in many ways. Just like it's the fact that you can't switch off your sense of smell. A dog doesn't go, you know what? I'm just gonna breathe through my mouth while we're in here. Like, it's just stuck smelling that. It can smell a barbecue from fucking 8 houses away. Imagine what it's like. You know when you walk into like a boy's room and you're like, oh my God, you need to crack a window. Imagine what that's like to a dog. God, it must be like being on a roller coaster with strobe lights.
Imagine taking a dog for a day out to a historic house like Hampton Court Palace. Like, it could probably still smell Henry VIII's arsehole or something. Fucking horrible.
Oh my God, he definitely had chef's ass.
Oh God, I can't even think about it. 100% he did. Can you imagine? Do you know, have I ever told about Henry VIII's funeral? I wasn't there. I'm not that old. But he was so unpopular when he died, Henry VIII, that his funeral procession happened in the summer, so it was really hot. Obviously, he was this really fat guy at this point. He was really ill. He had all these diseases. He had this coffin that was lead-lined or something. They had to pay people to, like, line the streets, as if he was a popular monarch, because everyone hated him by this point. Anyway, they'd taken this thing to wherever he's buried. Is it Windsor Castle? I'm not sure. That escapes me. So his funeral procession's going. They stop at this inn overnight so they can have a rest. And he's so bloated, his corpse at this point, it's so hot, it explodes.
What?
Bursts half the coffin. And there's a dog that's living at the inn. It starts licking
No.
Henry VIII's bodily fluids that have burst out of him.
Oh my God. He's like a pinata made of privilege.
Isn't it awful? So then they had to get it together and then carry him. Can you imagine the smell? Carry him to be buried the next day. This dog just like, so
Good
disgusting.
fucking God, that's awful.
Oh dear. If you can find any information on it, it's a really entertaining read, Henry VIII's funeral procession. Really, really grim. I'd love to make a sitcom about it, actually.
What, the like the wedding planner, but the funeral planner, like the season finale?
Yeah, something like that. But you can't. It's very difficult to get period things made, isn't it? Because costumes are too expensive.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to make it.
I remember seeing years ago in like Zoo or Nuts magazine that one of the lads had in school. It was some country where there was a massive beached whale, and they put the dead whale and they were bringing it through the city to get rid of it, and midway through the city it exploded.
Oh my
so there's just
God.
like putrid whale everywhere. It's absolutely, I think about it about 4 times a day, and I think I read it when I was 15.
Oh God. Also, is not the easiest way to dispose of a dead whale that's on a beach, take it back into the sea and just ditch it in there?
Or maybe it'll just keep washing up.
Oh God. Imagine the smell.
Yeah, not ideal. It's quite common. I googled whale explosion. Apparently, it's quite common. There's a lot of like, why do whales explode when they die? Oh God, there's one where someone is trying to open up its stomach and it just explodes.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
It's all gassy stuff in it. It's
Oh, here's another thing. I thought it was a Simpsons joke, but basically when they're on the beach to get rid of them, they put dynamite in them and blow them up.
Oh Christ almighty. Oh, ain't it horrible?
Absolutely hideous. You'd never get that smell out. Once someone kicked a 4-litre thing of milk at me that was empty on the side of the road, but it wasn't empty. It was full of, I'm sure I've told you this before, I'm sure it was full of like curdled rotten milk. Went all over me. I had to burn that fleece, much to my father's chagrin, because it couldn't get the smell of rotten milk out of it. Oh my God, also I've forgotten to tell you this. Sorry, we're going off on one, guys. We'll get back to it in a second. You know the fleece that he wore to my brother's wedding? I think
Yes.
I've mentioned that on
National
here before.
Geographic.
Do you want the absolutely astounding part 2 to that?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
So the National Geographic fleece that he's wearing. Now, my father is many things, but he's not a National Geographic reader. So I mentioned it to... In fact, my brother might have been listening to this podcast and he says, do you know where he got that fleece from? And I said, no, where? And he said, my ex-fiancé got it when she subscribed to National Geographic. So he wears the free fleece of an ex-fiancé to my brother's wife's wedding.
To the new... I absolutely love it. Something borrowed.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Fucking hell. He absolutely loves my brother's wife. Like, absolutely loves her. So there's no shade there. He's just, I'd say, off the scale insensitive. So it just won't even have occurred to him. That will have just been his tidiest fleece to wear. Absolutely mad.
Oh, that's great. I absolutely love it. He had a great T-shirt on the other day, didn't he? What was it? Super Mario.
It was a picture of Mario, and it says, it's a me, cardio, on it. And I said, do you know what your T-shirt says? And he goes, no. I said, it's a pun on it's a me Mario. I said, it says it's a me cardio. And he goes, what's that, cardiovascular disease because of my pacemaker? I went, no, cardio. I said, the thing that you haven't done that's meant that you've got a pacemaker.
Cardiovascular disease. Oh, God, oh my
Like he's suddenly got, like he's going to wear a fucking T-shirt with it on. Jesus Christ.
Oh, dear. Oh, don't right, we've got to get on. This is longer than I can't stop laughing. I'm going to laugh at that all day now.
So the bodies, unfortunately, of Bill and Lorraine are never found, which is just even more brutalising for, family and friends. So they basically work out how he committed the crimes. So do you want to tell them about the kill kits here?
Yeah, so he had dotted around various places throughout the USA. He had things that he referred to as a kill kit, which was like water butt things that he'd buried, and they were full of everything you'd need for a murder. So there was guns, there was rope, there was duct tape, there was knives, there was something like a drain cleaner type thing, wasn't there? Some chemicals, so he could dispose of bodies and clean up and stuff like that. So around America, there's several of these kits buried that nobody knows where they are. Now, he was ready to talk about these things. He was ready. So they brought in Google Maps and they'd said, right, what he's going to talk to us about is... Because they thought, well, we've got 3 confessions here. There's going to be more, but we'll see. He's mentioned his kill kit. We'll have a chat. Because that's where he'd buried one when he killed Bill and Lorraine. He had one ready, so he could just get on with it. So he could just get on a plane, go anywhere in the country, hire a car, and he knew that he had access to everything he needed. This is how random it was. So what happened was, because he'd asked for anonymity, unfortunately, when it was reported that the murderer of Bill and Lorraine had confessed in New England, someone leaked his name to the Vermont press. Now, this totally jeopardises the case. So he was ready to talk about... He starts to not trust the police, so he doesn't want the cigars anymore, he doesn't want the Snickers anymore. He starts dropping hints about victims. He doesn't give any more information, he just dropped hints.
Yeah, he doesn't speak for 2 months at all.
No, in 2001 as well, he said that his girlfriend was pregnant, and this is when they moved to Washington because she'd had issues with alcoholism, so he wanted to move away. And he says that he killed 3 people in Washington.
Jesus Christ.
So, at one point he goes from chatting to the police about the Green Bay Packers to when he realises he's like, oh, somebody's leaked my name, I can't trust them. And the reason he found out is because he had total access to the news, he had access to newspapers, because they were trying to treat him a bit liberally so he would speak, so that they trusted him. So the day that he said that the place called Lake Crescent, he said that there was bodies in there. They show him a picture of a woman called Deborah Feldman, and his whole demeanour changes. Now, Deborah Feldman was a 48-year-old woman who they think he'd murdered. And when they'd searched his computer, he had been searching her name on the internet. Now, when she'd gone missing, he'd robbed a bank in a nearby town. So when he shows the picture of her, he's like, oh, I don't know anything about this woman, but he starts acting very, very strange. So it's quite clear that he was involved in that.
He did a lot to sort of hide his tracks. Like when he killed Bill and Lorraine, he flew from Alaska to Chicago on June 2nd, and then he rents a car and he drives 1,000 miles to Essex, Vermont, where they are.
Wow.
So basically, they refer to him with Samantha Caning, that was his fuck up because he killed someone that was local to him. But I don't think that's true because they didn't find him till he was in fucking Texas. They didn't find him because he was local. They found him because he accidentally left a rental car in sight.
Yes. In 2012, a little side note, he reached out to his family for some reason, and he goes to his sister's wedding and he gets quite drunk, presumably on his, wild turkey. And he says, he causes a scene and he's like, you don't know what I've done. And everyone's like, oh, what's up with Israel? Here he is, he's come back and now he's kicking off. I mean, there's always someone kicking off at a wedding, so, it's not that unusual. But this is it. So on November 30th, this is where he agrees with the police. He says, all right, bring Google Maps in, and they have a drone, and they're going to locate these kill kits so they can try and, ascertain where he's murdered. Now, he agrees to help, but 2 days later, he's found dead in his cell. He has used a disposable razor in a pencil to slit his wrists, which is massively frustrating, isn't it, really? It's like, keep a fucking eye on these people, will you? If anything, I think they've been a bit too lenient with him, and I think to get him to talk, they've probably left him be more than he should have been to ascertain that trust again, and then this has happened.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah, I could see that making sense. That they sort of left him to his own devices, and as a result, he was able to do this. At the time of his death, he was being very coy, but he said that he killed less than a dozen And he was really open about Bill and Lorraine and Samantha Koenig's murders because he knew that there was evidence, but he was being very cagey about the other ones, and he also didn't know their names. But he did acknowledge that the time between his murders was getting shorter and shorter, which is a really common thing that we see in serial killers. And he seemed unapologetic, he seemed remorseless. He talks about a time that he shot at a couple and a police officer in Anchorage because he basically wanted to test out his silencer. So he went out to this lookout, shoots at the couple and shoots at this officer. Then another cop comes, so he ran. He says, "Oh, I almost got myself in a lot of trouble with that one." And then he stashes the silencer upstate in New York. He's basically got these kits, a lot of which have never been found, which is really fucking creepy.
It's like that horrible... Do you remember that Cadbury's Easter egg hunt that happened years and years ago? Like there's still like golden eggs hidden around the country somewhere that you can still find. Did you ever see that book? It was really creepy. I used to look at it as a kid going, "Oh, this is weird." But yeah, it's a bit like that.
What,
like
the one with the rabbit, that massive book that everyone's obsessed with, the rabbit thing?
Yeah, the hair, like a big hair on the front and...
Hold on. Well, weird story on that. The person who... What's that called? Masquerade, that's it.
That sounds familiar, right? Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Kit Williams, yes. Okay, so Kit Williams is an artist, and someone I know, they were asked to pose for Kit Williams, and they were like, okay, really, really shy, had never even, been with a guy, and Kit Williams is like, "Well, take off your clothes and sort of dance around." And so she's like, "Okay," and does it, is like sort of weirdly liberated to do it, and then is like dreading this painting coming out. Anyway, when the painting comes out, he's painted a dress on her.
Oh, God.
So it's this really thing of like, I can't quite figure out what's gone on. But
I mean, I'll be honest, it's a blessing that he's an artist and not a doctor. I mean, what is going on? Oh, God.
Weird, isn't it?
It's really weird. The thing is, it's worse than expecting yourself in a dress and then being painted naked.
Yeah. So, also, we should say, just before he took his own life, he was in court in May of that year, and he tried to flee. He jumped over the rail between the audience and the trial.
Audience?
The audience at the trial. Between the... What do you call them then?
I don't... Nosy bastards? I don't know. Jury?
Grieving families? Does that fit better, Rachel?
The bereaved.
Witnesses, let's say. So he jumped over the barrier that is between the actual trial happening and the people who were there to bear witness.
He's a fucking idiot.
He obviously got caught. He got tasered. He said he noticed on his first day that his leg irons were loose, and he said, "Listen, if there's a 1% chance that I could escape, why not take it?" Which also feels like a very Ted Bundy thing to do, because to be fair, he did manage it. Yeah, and then was jailed March 12th, and then December 2nd took his own life. What a horrible, weird guy, and I hate that we don't know all the people that he murdered, and I hate that we don't know where those kill kits are.
Well, as if 2020 couldn't get even more shit. This year, the FBI released drawings from his prison cell when he killed himself in his own blood. There were 11 skulls and a pentagram under his bed. So they think probably the number that he killed was 11. He think that might have been a clue. He left a suicide note, but to be honest, it was just bad poetry that gave nothing away about the previous murders. There's no point even bothering with it. But he said He said, well, there's not, is there, it's just giving voice to someone who's a fucking knobhead. He said he was a Satanist as well, which he said he bought the Satanic Bible when he was a teenager. I mean, you show me a teenager that hasn't bought that at some point in their life, thinking they're a bit cool. But, I mean, one of the main this is what always fascinates me about these people, is one of the main sort of beliefs of Satanism is don't harm anyone unless they harm you. So it's all about revenge, isn't it? So it's like if somebody pisses you off or crosses you in a way that hurts your feelings or whatever, you can do whatever you want for revenge. But none of this is ever revenge, is it? It's just fucking nonsense. It's just, the guy's an absolute nut job, as usual.
Yeah. He is, in that just the forward planning and things of putting those... Because the reason why he did it is because you couldn't get on a plane with a gun. So if he already had a gun in a bucket somewhere behind some rocks or under a bridge, then he didn't have to buy one or source one while he was there. So it's just that level of forethought and planning that is... Do you know what? I bet he's one of those people who starts buying Christmas presents in January.
Oh, my God.
And stowing them away.
No, cannot be doing with that. Cannot. I don't want a present that you bought in January that's been under your bed covered in fucking dust. It's been under your bed while you're banging your husband, giving disappointing blowjobs, and I've got to open that on fucking Christmas Day. keep it. Don't want it.
What is Christmas Day in 2020 if it isn't a disappointing blowjob on a dusty bed?
I imagine that's been the entire year, hasn't it?
Oh, fucking hell. Right. That is Israel Keys then.
Yeah, and
it's a long one.
It is a long one. We must say as well, thank you to everyone who's donated to the Patreon, because we really appreciate it. It's made such a difference during these times, and it does mean we can whack out more of these than usual as well, which we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really, really appreciate that, and thanks just to everyone for listening and supporting us with other things that we've done during this time. I mean, hopefully things are coming to an end now. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean like life. I mean lockdown. Unless we're in for another lockdown, I don't fucking know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be what it'll be. We've been very lucky, and in no small part is that down to how supportive you guys are.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, and we will speak to you soon. Get in contact if you've got any suggestions for killers, preferably not ones we've already done.
I'm thinking, I watched a documentary about the happy face killer the other day. I think he might be a good one.
Oh, great. Yeah, let's do that then.
Yeah, let's do that one. He might be a bit full on, but, interesting.
Great.
Rightio. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.